On today's episode, Toughest Mudder East recap with the men's and women's winners, Shaun Stephens-Whale and Allison Tai.
This is the world's toughest podcast. Welcome to the world's toughest podcast, where we talk about any obstacle course race you'd like, as long as that's world's toughest mudder. Each week we talk to members of the WTM community and share stories of success and failure in the single greatest event in OCR. My name is Will Hicks, and this is the world's toughest podcast.
Welcome back to World's Toughest Podcast. Thank you for listening. You are listening to the number one rated OCR podcast in the world, according to Apple Podcasts and Amazon.com. Thank you for rating and reviewing the show on Apple and Amazon. On today's show, we talk Toughest Mudder East with the men's and women's winners, Shaun Stephens-Whale and Allison Tai. We're going to go ladies first with Allison Tai and Shaun Stephens-Whale. Allison and Shaun have both been on our show before, but Toughest Mudder East was big for both of them. This was Shaun's first win at Toughest Mudder and Allison's fourth win. That fourth win for Allison allows her to pass Lindsay Webster's 3 wins, making Allison the winningest woman of Toughest Mudder so far. Rhea Coble is the only other woman with multiple wins. She has 2. Before we start, you can email me at willhicks@gmail.com. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheWillHicks, and you can follow the show on Instagram at World's Toughest Podcast. Instagram has kind of become my go-to spot for sharing Tough Mudder and OCR news. Once or twice a day, usually, I will post something interesting from the OCR news scene, like the deal last week at the European OCR Championships. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but you could have heard about it last week if you were watching our Instagram. Plus, Instagram, I know some of you don't want to hear this, Instagram keeps growing in popularity over Facebook. And I know a ton of people are on Facebook, and for some people, Facebook is the internet, but I barely spend any time on Facebook these days. It's Instagram, Twitter, and whatever happened to pizza at McDonald's, SoundCloud. You can also be a part of our show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. On your iPhone or iPad, on the Purple Podcast app, search for World's Toughest Podcast. Click our logo, and then scroll down and click Write a Review. And I will read it on a future episode. Before we get to our Tough Mudder news this episode, happy 4th of July. I asked my son if he knew which countries had the 4th of July, and he said all of them. And he's right. But July 4th is not just Independence Day in America, celebrating the birth of our country. It is also the birthday of Sir George Everest, who built the largest mountain in the world. It's the birthday of Rube Goldberg, the noted American machinist, and Michael the Situation Sorrentino. Rest in peace, the Situation. He's not dead. He just really needs to rest. Happy birthday, America. I got you a gift card. Let's talk Tough Mudder news. Tough Mudder Pro Team member and 3-time Toughest Mudder winner Lindsay Webster raced in the Whiteface Sky Race this past week in Wilmington, New York. Lindsay finished the race up some of the steepest ski hills in the country, finishing in first place for the women and 5th place overall. Congratulations on the win, Lindsay. Dates for 2019 Tough Mudder events have started to trickle out, including information on Toughest Mudder UK Midlands 2019. For the 3rd year in a row, Toughest Mudder UK will be at Beaver Castle in Grantham. If you guys in America want to get a little chuckle, go look at how they spell beaver in England. It will also, for the 3rd year in a row, be held on Mother's Day weekend. Ian Kay, one of our UK listeners, pointed out to me That weekend is the same date as the Rat Race Dirty weekend in the UK. The Rat Race Dirty weekend is a 20-mile, 200-obstacle race that is very popular with the same crowd that we would expect to see at Toughest Mudder. And what's worse, the Rat Race has had their date out there for a while, so people have already been signing up for it. And this is the third year in the same spot on the same date for Toughest Mudder. So I hope the UK shows up strong again for Toughest Mudder UK. Tough Mudder will be making their debut in a brand new country this November. On November 30th, the Tough Mudder 5K will come to the country of Oman. Oman is the second country in the Middle East to host Tough Mudder, following their neighbors in the United Arab Emirates, who have had Tough Mudder in Dubai. Unlike most countries, though, there will be no finisher beers at the finish line in Oman. It is illegal to drink in public in Oman, although you can drink in your home if you have the correct license from the Royal Police. That is 100% true. The European OCR Championships were last week, and there was controversy for much of the weekend. On Friday, they had the short course championships. The obstacle difficulty was so severe that only 1 to 2% of all runners were able to keep their band by finishing all obstacles. Many elite athletes, including two-time World's Toughest Mudder champion Jon Albon, did not finish the course, choosing instead to save their strength for the standard length course on Saturday. Saturday had its own share of controversy, however. Jon Albon of the UK was in the lead with an approximate 1-minute lead on Belgium's Thibaut Deboucher, with one obstacle remaining. The obstacle had multiple facets, culminating in a partial cargo net descent, followed by swinging on a rope across a set point on the ground. Albon descended all the way to the ground and approached the rope as if it were a rope climb. Albon's touching the ground meant he failed the obstacle and had to restart the entire obstacle. Albon restarted the obstacle while Deboucher started for the first time. They completed the obstacle. Deboucher crossed the finish line first before Albon. However, the European OCR Championships uses strict chip timing. Even though Deboucher crossed the finish line first, because Albon crossed the start line after Deboucher, Albon finished the race 0.13 seconds ahead of Deboucher, a little more than 1/10 of 1 second. After discussion between the athletes and the OCR EC organization, it was decided Albon and Deboucher would be crowned co-champions. So congratulations to Jon Albon and Thibaut Deboucher on their wins. One last bit of news from the Spartan world.
This is madness!
No, just news. Spartan Race has announced a potential bonus prize of $1 million for the man or woman who wins all 3 of their World Championship events. That is the sound of an asterisk I will tell you about in a minute. The first of the 3 races to win $1 million is the Spartan Race World Championship on September 29th. That is approximately 13 miles through the mountains of Lake Tahoe, California. The second race is the Spartan Trifecta World Championship in Sparta, Greece on November 2nd through 4th. It will include all 3 of Spartan's classic race distances in one weekend. The racer with the lowest cumulative time of the 3 races is the winner. The third race is the Spartan Ultra Beast World Championship in Reykjavik, Iceland. This race is a 24-hour race on a looped course. The man and woman who run the most laps in 24 hours are the winners. That asterisk. In order to win the $1 million, the man or woman must win all 3 races and run 100 miles in Iceland. Last year, the first place man, Joshua Fiore, ran 71 miles. The first place woman, Morgan Mackay, ran 57 miles. That 100-mile add-on is a big asterisk. That'll be hard. 100 miles is hard on a good day. The conditions in Iceland last year were brutal. But let me tell you who has a shot at winning it. 2 people. The only 2 people in the world who have a shot at winning the $1 million. That is the man and woman who win the Spartan Race World Championship. That's it. After the Spartan World Championships, everyone else is out. Now, whoever wins the Spartan Race World Championship in Tahoe is probably good enough of an athlete to win the Trifecta World Championship in Greece a month and a half later. It won't be easy or automatic, obviously, but for that, whoever wins that in Tahoe is probably strong enough to win in Athens. The hardest one is going to be Iceland, the 24-hour Ultra Beast Championship in Iceland. Just winning it is going to be hard enough because there will be athletes there that train for endurance. They don't care about your short 13-mile race. They're there to run 24 hours, and that's what they've been training for all year. So you're going to have to beat a whole new crowd coming from Tahoe to Greece to Iceland. And you've got to get your 100 miles. It is a big challenge, but $1 million is a big check. Oh, last asterisk for you. If the man and woman both qualify to win the $1 million, it will be split $500,000 each. Who do you think should go after the $1 million? Let me know. willhicks@gmail.com. Speaking of Jon Albon earlier, this weekend, July 7th, is the first ever Tougher Mudder European Championship in London. Albon is expected to race in London. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at World's Toughest Podcast for race results this weekend. Let's talk Toughest Mudder East. Toughest Mudder East was held last week outside Boston. This was the 5th Toughest Mudder of the 2018 season. There are 2 more Toughest Mudder races remaining this year. Germany's Toughest Mudder on September 1st and America's Toughest Mudder West, NorCal, on October 7th. The 24-hour championship race, World's Toughest Mudder, will be held in Atlanta on November 10th. Your Toughest Mudder East men's winner is Shaun Stephens-Whale with 45 miles in 8 hours and 9 minutes. Your Toughest Mudder East women's winner is Allison Tai with 40 miles in 8:02. We are going to talk with both winners in a few minutes. Your top 10 athletes, your top 5 men are: in first, Shaun Stephens-Whale, 45 miles in 8:09. In second, Joshua Reed with 45 miles in 8:28. In third, Mark Jones with 40 miles in 7:30. In fourth, Tyler McCready with 40 miles in 7:41. And in fifth, Jason Harley with 40 miles in 7:44. Your top 5 women are: in first, Allison Tai with 40 miles in 8:02. In second, Anne Champagne with 40 miles in 8:17. In third, Kelly Sullivan with 35 miles in 8:04. In fourth, Cara Pizzuti with 35 miles in 8:14. And in fifth, Deanna Brass with 35 miles in 8:20. We are going to talk with all 10 of the top men and women of Toughest Mudder East in the next few episodes, as well as taking a deeper dive into the numbers of Toughest Mudder East and seeing how East stacks up against the 4 previous Tough Mudders in the U.S. and Australia. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you do not miss that episode. Before we talk with your Toughest Mudder East winners, let's read some iTunes reviews.
5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars. 5 stars.
Our first review comes from the UK. Love the UK. From the UK, Becky Stanton writes, 5 stars. My absolute favorite podcast to listen to whilst driving across the UK to Tough Mudder events. It makes me want to bound across the course like I am in The Sound of Music, listening to the Chris Mendoza song.
Christopher Mendoza.
Becky Stanton, from Scotland. Hashtag 5 star. Thank you, Becky. That may be our first review from Scotland. I appreciate that, Becky. Thank you. Here's how you can tell Becky is from the UK. She writes favorite with a U. If I were a letter, I'd be the letter Q, because everywhere that I would be, I'd be right next to you. More on our next episode of World's Toughest Nursery Rhymes. If you'd like to be a part of our show, like Becky Stanton from Scotland, you can leave a review on Apple Podcasts too. Just open the Purple Podcast app on your iPhone or iPad and search for World's Toughest Podcast. Click our logo and then scroll down to click Write a Review. If you are on Android, you can leave a review by going to Amazon and searching for World's Toughest Podcast. Click our logo and then scroll down to click Write a Customer Review, and I will read it on a future episode. We are all caught up on reviews, so if you want to hear your words on the air, this is a good week. Leave a review this week. I will read it next week. Allison Tai and Shaun Stephens-Whale won Toughest Mudder East last week. It is always nice to talk with Allison and Shaun. Let's go to the phones.
Allison Tai, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Will. Thanks for having me again.
Again.
I feel like I've been on here a few times.
You won Toughest Mudder East with 40 miles in 8 hours and 2 seconds. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We're talking a few days after the race. How do you feel?
Pretty good, yeah, actually. I was a little bit wrecked after Texas because I kind of pulled one of my calves beforehand, but it is amazing what happens when you don't have any nigglies going in. And so, yeah, my legs felt pretty decent at the race, and they feel pretty decent now. So I kind of dodged the soreness bullet on this one, I think.
Overall, how was your race?
It was really good. It was, we had a little bit of like rocky and rooty and technical stuff there, which, kind of added an element of fun to the running portions. The obstacles were really good. They kind of stacked the grip obstacles in the middle, which was neat. Penalties weren't too crazy. It was, it was a pretty, I'd say, good race all in all. And I think they had this stacks obstacle, which was kind of neat. So I think they, are trying to get back into that real obstacle innovation frontier that they were always so good at. Because, it wasn't a really hard obstacle, but it was pretty cool. They had basically, for those of you guys that were not there, they had like a cargo container stacked on top of another one, and then you just kind of scaled down the other side. So, not a like super technical obstacle or anything, but just really fun and kind of new. So
I heard it was kind of scary.
Yeah, if you don't like heights, you probably wouldn't like that. For sure.
I heard there's a lot of single track trail and kind of not treacherous, but where you need to watch your footing terrain.
Yeah, I mean, I think just being from the Pacific Northwest, that's kind of just how trail running is here. So I don't think that like freaked me out so much, but I could see, you're running in there in the dark and it's slippery. You could definitely like blow an ankle or a knee pretty easy and, be hobbling the rest of the race. But it didn't have a lot of like elevation added to it. And that's where I get kind of like sketched out, is when there's that kind of footing and then you're like bombing down the side of a mountain. But it was just like a bit rolly and stuff with some technicals. So I quite liked the footing. It was fun, but I could see how, it might like freak people out, just increases their chance to injury and stuff like that. Yeah, I thought it was fun. It was kind of like an obstacle between obstacles.
You mentioned the upper body obstacles were kind of clustered together. Tell me about that.
So they had, they had rope-a-dope. And then they had, I think it was Funky Monkey next, and then Kong. Just the tip was in there. I don't know. You think I didn't do like more than one lap for what I can remember? Maybe it was just the tip, rope-a-dope, Funky, and Kong, or whatever the order was, but kind of all clustered. So it was really cool, because often when they cluster them, it's at the end, but this was just kind of like mid lap. So yeah, it just kind of, a little bit of change here and there, just kind of freshens it up and makes it, I think, a little bit more fun.
You had some competition this race. Tell me about the end of the race.
Yeah, so, basically we figured that if the ladies behind me would keep going the same pace, I could pull it in after one more lap. So I kind of went out and did, one of those like, just finishing up laps. And then I expected to come across the finish line and then they'd be like, yay, you're done. But instead I came across the finish line and Gina, my amazing pit crew, was standing there like, oh, you know, like come in real fast. She's got a Red Bull in her hand. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is not a good sign. I think this means I need to go again. So she's like, yeah, you better hustle. So for that last lap there, I just kind of had to like throw the hammer down and hold on and just keep running to the finish line, which it's funny because at the time you don't want to do it, right? You just want to have like an easy lap and be done. But after you do it, it's like the most amazing feeling to just kind of leave it out all on the course. So I was like not super jazzed about going back out and going back hard at the end, but it is like one heck of a way to finish a race. And you just feel like you left it all out there and you're spent and you're done. And so, yeah, it ended up kind of, you know, just being a really fun way to end. And I actually ran into Wesley. He was up all night pulling people to the top of Everest. And so he ran, I met him at Devil's Beard, which was one of the last obstacles. And so he ran in that lap with me, which was really fun and kind of kept my spirits up and kept me pushing all the way to the end. So it was a really good way to just kind of end a really good race. So
I think it was on the last lap. I saw a picture of you and Shaun Stephens-Whale crossing Block Ness Monster together. Do you remember that?
Yeah, so when he lapped me, we were together for a short time, and then he was going faster than me on that second last lap that I thought was my last lap, but was not. So he passed me and we ran together for a little bit. And then I repassed him when I had to like hoof it. So I'm not sure which lap it was because I saw him out there twice, but it was really neat just having him on course and just seeing him like totally smoke it. His dad was there and like cheering me on each lap. And it's just really neat to have somebody that's, you know, from your neck of the woods and kind of a good pal out there on the course. And just, when I'd come in, I'd hear like accounts of how far ahead he was and how just amazing of a race he was having and stuff like that. So it just kind of, gives you a little bit more fuel for your fire, I think, when we're running out there and you can feel lonely, and it just kind of gives you something to keep pushing for.
So this is your 4th win and your 7th podium at Toughest Mudder. What keeps drawing you back to Toughest Mudder?
For me, I think it's the community. I mean, it's like a super fun adventure to like crawl through the mud and, like swing across things. And I think at this stage in my life, running is just so boring. I've done the ultramarathons, I've done the triathlons, and those are just not exciting for me anymore. I think once you've done long distance obstacle course racing, it's just really hard to go back to anything else, because I go running even on my road, just on my runs in the mountains, and I'm like, oh, I wish there was like something to climb or crawl under, or, so it does make it more exciting. But at the same time, even if I was to be the only one on course, it just would not be fun, right? So it really is like winning a race would really not matter if there was nobody there to kind of celebrate with you, and like finishing these crazy endurance events. I mean, it would be great personal satisfaction and, like still like a big achievement, but it just wouldn't mean which it would not be the same without the community. So I think like bottom line is it's really the community that draws me out. It's just like not like any other in endurance sport, right? It's so unique.
It's tough to explain that to people, but it's really like in Texas, like we did the race and then we were talking after the race. It was just a fun, like just that community aspect of it.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And it's kind of like ultramarathon was years and years ago, or even marathons. Like people thought people that ran marathons were like super kooky, right? Running around in their neighborhood in like short shorts and just going hard for miles and miles and miles and pushing their bodies, and their neighbors thought they were nuts. And now it's like, oh yeah, my 60-year-old neighbor just did her first marathon, right? So, and I think that vibe is still there for Tough Mudder and obstacle course racing, is just in terms of like, these kind of kooky people pushing their body to the limits, and you kind of have that like that bond that you can't get anywhere else unless you've overcome trauma together. So yeah, we just keep putting ourselves out there and finding the best way to make ourselves get through it, and we grow, individually as people, and we grow as a community, and it's just such an awesome thing to be a part of. And
we definitely have our share of the kooky ones too.
I know, that's the best part about Tough Mudder. Like Spartan race, I love them, but they don't have the kooks. Like I love the unique personalities in the sport, and like how like so many people have like their thing. Like, oh, I'm the one that wears like this color, shirt or whatever. Like everybody just has their like own little persona, and it's just it's so much fun. I love the people in this community. It's just amazing.
There were a lot of new faces on the podium at this race. What was it like with competition that you might not know out there?
Well, I knew Anne Champagne because I have raced some Ultra Beasts and stuff, and she's definitely a big player in the Spartan race series. So when I came in, I was like, where did Chikorita go? Where did Morgan go? And then I heard that they, had to unfortunately end their races early. And so I said, oh, well, then who is it that's the next person back? And Gina was like, oh, it's this Anne Champagne. I'm like, I know her. She is legit. She is a little beast. So, yeah, I knew who she was as soon as I heard her name. But I didn't see her in the start area. So it wasn't until, like, partway through the night that I even knew she was there. But no, she hasn't done any Tough Mudders as far as I know, but she is a phenomenal athlete. And yeah, it was really cool to watch her come across the finish line, smiling ear to ear. She just kind of has that happy glow that is just awesome. Like Deanna Braz, she's another one that you see her come across and just ear to ear smiles, and the joy is just like, like shooting from her heart.
It was fun to see Deanna finish in the top 5 this race.
I know. I was so happy for her. Yeah, it's a gamble, right? Because she loves the tougher, and unfortunately, we can only do so much and put our energy somewhere. And so I feel for her that it's hard to make those decisions. But I'm glad she did it, and I hope she's super happy with her results, because it's just even neat to be able to, say that you're an elite contender at World's Toughest Mudder is a pretty big deal.
Do you have any plans for Toughest Mudder Berlin or Toughest Mudder West in California?
Yeah, I'll be doing both those as far as I know. I haven't booked tickets to Germany yet, but I'm feeling like I'm probably going to be ready for a race by the time that hits. I'm kind of ready for just a hardcore training cycle and racing for a little while. That was a lot of racing. But I know by the time September rolls around, I'm going to be itching to get back out there on the course. So for sure, I'll look into that. And then LA is already on the schedule. All the travel plans are made.
That's a good point. You had a Toughest Mudder every week or every 3 weeks. It was bam, bam, bam.
Yeah, so I did Tough Mudder Australia, and then I had a few weeks till the 24-hour, and then I did the 24-hour enduro, and I came back that weekend. So I got back on Thursday, and then packed my bags for Whistler. We drove out to Whistler, and then I raced the Tougher on the Saturday, and then I got back and then had a few days to clean the house and all that stuff, and then packed my bags and went to Boston. So it's just been a ton of travel and a ton of really fun races. And I was actually surprised, because I thought for sure when I was looking at my schedule, I'm like, oh my gosh, by the time I go to Boston, I'm going to be a zombie and I'm going to hate racing and, not want to be there. But I was really excited to race still. It was bizarre. I didn't get sick of it. Although I feel probably time for a break from racing for a little bit here.
Do you have any tips on, staying injury-free with all that racing?
I'm lucky. My husband's a massage therapist, so he's like, oh, what hurts? I'm like, oh, my calf. And so he'll kind of work out all the nigglies. But you can either do that by enlisting the help of a professional, or you can just I do a lot of mobility with balls and stretching. And so even if you don't feel like something is sore, sometimes you figure it out when you start stretching or mobilizing it, right? So I just do a whole body mobilization thing almost every day, and that's when I can kind of identify when there's pieces that need a little bit more work or are going to crop up. And just a lot of make sure you sleep a lot if you're going to be racing in a lot in one block. So lots of sleep and good nutrition and hydration and all that stuff. And sometimes you just can't push it in every race. In the Tougher, it's a 10-mile. I wasn't, going for broke like I would normally be trying to go for broke in a 10-mile, just because I knew it was right between. So I just thought, okay, think of this one as a tempo run. And it works for me. It doesn't work for everybody. I think probably because I have almost no top end speed, it works a little better for me to race a lot, because it's I can't go fast enough to, blow myself out. But I think for the more powerful, athletic people, they probably would not want to hold a schedule like that where you're racing every weekend and throwing it all down on the line.
Someone write that down. Marry a massage therapist.
Yes. Put that high on the list.
All right.
You could just send your wife to school. Be like, hey.
She wants me to go. She's like, babe, go be a chiropractor. Go be a massage therapist. I'm like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, be something. Come on, man.
Do something
that
with
can
your life.
Fix me. Yeah.
Allison, do you have any sponsors you're working with or anything you'd like to plug?
Oh, same as always. Yancey being the world's most superest coach, and Tough Mudder has been really, really awesome this year. And I think that's kind of what's helped me drive a little bit farther this year, is just not taking for granted the fact that they added me as a member on their super pro team. And, I just want to I want to rep well for them. So it's a good, when you're on a team like that, it really kind of drives you just that little bit more. So that's been fantastic. And that's it. Pretty much the community, my little community here is amazing. Just the same as always. I just love all the people in my life, and I'm just so grateful that I get to do this, and I get to do this with the coolest people on earth.
Allison, how can people find you on social media?
Yo Mama So Fit is my Instagram handle, I think, and I'm trying to get better at Instagram. It's a process. And Facebook's just my name, Allison Tai. And then I have a Twitter account that I never use. So if you want to shoot messages into the air, you can Twitter me or whatever it is these days.
Allison, any last thoughts on Toughest Mudder East?
No, yeah, just congratulations to everybody that went out there, and can't wait for the next one.
Allison Tai, thanks much.
Thanks, Will.
Shaun Stephens-Whale, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having me again.
Shaun, you won Toughest Mudder East with 45 miles this weekend. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You ran those 45 miles in 8 hours and 9 minutes. We're talking a few days after the race. How do you feel?
I feel like I'm recovering pretty well from that one. I think I've done a couple of these now, so I know more what to expect. And so jumping straight back into training is something I wouldn't do. Knowing just how the process goes, it takes probably like a week until I'm really able to go and get a good workout in again. So yeah, just taking some easy days, but I mean, it's going so good so far. So yeah.
This is your third Toughest Mudder, your first win. What are some of those lessons you learned from your first two that helped you out this weekend?
Yeah, I would say one of the biggest things is feeding. Something I didn't do in the last two races was feed on course. And so this time I was making sure I was taking a gel when I was out on course, and then I'd come in to the pit, take on a bit more food, and then head out again. That way it just cuts down on my pit time a bit, as well as allowing me to eat a bit more food over the course of those 8 hours. And so, overall, I think that helped a bit with energy levels and with cramping in the race.
Did you have shorter pit times this race, or just you had more food total because you were eating in the pit and on the course?
I think a bit of both. I wasn't eating as much in the pits this time. So my dad had some GoPro footage, and we were going over exactly how long I was in the pits for. And it was between 8 and 20 seconds for pretty much every lap. So I think that's definitely an improvement from Toughest Mudder South. And I think I'm pretty happy with that.
That's great. I don't know if you can cut that much more. That's pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen Atkins go quicker, but I don't know. I'm not Atkins.
Overall, how'd you feel about your race?
Good, yeah. The first couple laps, I wasn't feeling too great. Sort of had to work into it a bit. The quads were a bit heavy from whatever, I'm not really sure. But overall, it was nice to sort of be able to get into my own zone and just focus on my own pace, my own comfort level, without having to worry about someone right by my side. Overall, I was pretty happy with how things went. Yeah.
So you said you kind of kept your own pace. How did those first couple laps shake out? Were you in the front?
Right. On the first lap, it seemed to go up pretty quick. I think I was sitting in about fifth for a while. By the end of the lap, I was in second, but the guy who, I guess, won the sprint lap took it out pretty hard. So he had a good gap on us. But I guess he was just going for the sprint lap bonus, and so I ended up going out on my second lap in first place without really realizing it. So I was still hunting him on the second lap, but I was really just hunting a ghost because I was in first at the time, and didn't really realize I was in first until about halfway through that second lap.
Did that kind of get in your head, like, where is this guy?
Yeah, a bit. I mean, it's such a long race that I didn't want to focus too much on that early in the race, being uber competitive. I just wanted to focus on getting in a rhythm, feeling nice and relaxed, and just kind of getting a feel for the course.
So you were by yourself in first there for most of the race. How did that feel?
Good. I do long training runs, like 4+ hours on my own, so I'm sort of used to the solo feel of it. But at the same time, you're passing a lot of other tough mudders out on course, and so you don't really feel alone, even though you're kind of running alone. Lots of encouragement. I mean, it's great to be out there. I think overall I was pretty happy with how things went. I didn't really have to push too hard, which was nice, and so that allowed me to save a bit more energy for the end.
The forecast called for rain for the race. How was the weather?
Oh man, yeah, I was a bit nervous about that. I think there was a chance of like thunderstorms, but yeah, the rain kind of held off, just like the lightest of sprinkles. But the course was running fairly dry, which was good because it made the obstacles quite a bit easier, especially late in the race when you were starting to fatigue. And I think the weather held up nicely.
You mentioned the obstacles. How'd you do on the obstacles this time?
Pretty good. I know just the tip was a big issue at Tough Mudder South, and it kind of got in my head before the race. But once I got on course, I was able to do it every lap without a problem, just skipping those doorknobs, and it wasn't really an issue. So that was good. One thing this toughest race did is they put Kong back to back with Funky Monkey. There was about 100 meters run between those two obstacles. And that made things a bit tricky. Once they opened Kong Infinity at 5:30 a.m., Funky Monkey was much more difficult because you'd be kind of pumped coming off of Kong Infinity going into it.
There was an obstacle I saw a picture of, the stacks.
Yes.
Tell me about the stacks.
Yeah, so the stacks is pretty much just a bunch of cargo containers stacked on top of each other. And you have to climb up a ladder on one side, run along the cargo stacks, and then climb down a cargo net on the other side. For me, it was fine. I was a bit annoyed because it was adding a couple extra minutes onto every lap, and so that sort of 50-mile goal that I had in mind going into the race was becoming more out of reach with each lap. But I think some people were a bit nervous coming down the cargo net just because if they slipped, if their grip was poor or something, it could have ended poorly. I heard that someone tried to just jump from the top. That was sort of the urban lore on course, and it was probably about a 6 or 7 meter jump. So I hope that didn't happen, but apparently someone tried.
Toward the end of the race, after the sun came up, I saw a picture of you and Allison Tai, the women's winner, crossing Block Ness Monster together. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Allison was running very well again at the end. I guess she had to. She was competing for it. So I think she thought she had more of a lead than she ended up having, and so she had to push it a bit more at the end. So when I lapped her, we both thought we had pretty comfortable leads, so we ran together for a while, for about a mile or so. And then at Loch Ness, I pulled away from her again. But coming into the lap after that, I was hesitant as to whether I was going to go out for a 9th lap, because I was looking at the guys behind me and I was just doing the mental math of whether they would have time to complete a 9th lap. And I think what hit me in the end was realizing that in Whistler, I decided not to go out for that 9th lap, and Robert ended up getting it. So I was just like, okay, you know what? I got like an hour and a half to do one more lap. I'll just go out and enjoy myself. And so, I went out for that 9th lap, and Allison actually ended up passing me on that lap again, and she was just cruising hard.
You talk about lessons learned from past races. That Whistler race, you're right, you had second place, Killian went out for another lap, and he stole second place from you. If that had not happened, you could have lost first place this weekend.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that I was totally out of energy. I just, for recovery purposes, it would have been beneficial if I just ran 40 miles as opposed to 45. Just with the rest of my race season ahead, it's sort of nice to get back into training as soon as you can. And so it wasn't necessarily that I felt it was going to be too demanding to do another lap, but I just didn't want to necessarily put myself into that sort of hole. But it was good because I ended up being able to sort of take that last lap as a victory lap. Ran it a bit easier than the other laps, and things worked out in the end.
The second place male ended up with 45 miles. He was 20 minutes behind you, but you might want to write Robert Killian a thank you card.
Yeah, maybe.
So this is your first win at Toughest Mudder. Tell me about the emotions you felt crossing the finish line, knowing you won.
Yeah, it was a feeling of happiness, obviously. In one of these races, they are quite long, so for me at least, since I had a pretty comfortable lead for most of it, I would say by the end my expectations were sort of that I would come away with the victory, and so it wasn't quite sort of the elation of a sprint finish with someone else and pulling off the W, but I am very very happy to finally get a win at one of these bigger events, and I hope it's just the start of things to come.
Do you have any plans for Toughest Mudder Berlin or Toughest Mudder Wests in California?
I don't know about Berlin, but I definitely intend to do Toughest Mudder West.
So Atkins was not at Boston. He probably will be in California. This will be the first time going head-to-head with Atkins since your win. What are your thoughts, or do you have any strategy going into that race?
I don't think I've really processed everything fully yet. But I mean, I'm definitely going to go into that race with the intention of trying to beat him. I mean, I think that's something that I'll go into the race with. But at the same time, I know Atkins is an incredible athlete, so I don't know. I'm probably have to process things. It's going to be a race during the day too, so that might change things up a bit. I'm not sure. I have to think about that. But yeah, I'm definitely excited to race against Atkins again. Hopefully, we'll both be very fit by then, so it'll be a fun battle, and maybe there'll be a couple more guys jumping in the mix then too.
That will be the last Toughest Mudder of the year, so I think all the big guns will be at that one. You're right about it being a daytime race, and things are going to change. We don't know what's going to change necessarily, but it will be different for sure.
Yeah, I think it might be hotter, which might not be great for me necessarily. And then you don't need a headlamp, which will be kind of nice because my headlamps seem to always really suck. So, I don't know.
Shaun, do you have any sponsors or anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, I mean, I've started working with Capra, which is a running store in Squamish. They sell sort of outdoor mountain running equipment, and so if you're ever in the Squamish area, I'd recommend checking them out. They're pretty cool.
Shaun, how can people find you on social media?
So I'm mainly in Instagram at the moment. My handle is verticalrunning_A, and that's the Canadian A, EH. Check me out.
Shaun, any last thoughts on Toughest Mudder East?
No, not really. I think it was a great course, but hopefully I'll be able to get 50 miles at the next Toughest.
Shaun Stephens-Whale, thanks much.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Special thanks to Allison Tai and Shaun Stephens-Whale for appearing on today's episode. Well done, you two. Come back anytime. I appreciate you two sharing your insight, shooting from your heart.
Shooting from her heart.
Happy 4th of July, America. Happy Wednesday, everybody else. I hope you get to go watch a parade, wave your flag. I'll see you next time. Go spend time with someone you love.